All right, well, welcome everyone to today's SAP community call. Thanks for joining us for this excellent opportunity for the SAP community to be able to interact and ask questions directly to top SAP executives. And today is no different. We're happy to welcome two distinguished guests with us this morning. We have Max Wessel, the SAP Chief Innovation Officer, joining us this morning, as well as Sebastian Schrötel, Head of Intelligent RPA. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us for this call. Maybe before we get into all the technical details, here we are in the middle of the summer season, and we were talking a little bit before we got started about just how hot, terribly hot, evidently it is in Germany right now. And we thought to break the ice a little bit, to ask both of you kind of how your summer is going, what your upcoming summer vacation plans are.
Well, thanks, first of all, for having us. I can take this one first because my answer is probably less interesting. So I'm right here in Palo Alto at the moment, and I am excited that I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks. So quite excited about that, albeit it's going to be the first time, everything we're doing is driving distance from Palo Alto. So we've sort of got the hikes, the beach visits, whatever it might be charted out. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so they don't travel in long road trips easily. So we've tried to be as creative as we can, understanding very tight boundary constraints.
Beaches and hikes, you're making everyone jealous, I bet. Yeah. And Sebastian?
Yeah, also welcome from my side, and a big thanks for everyone for your interest in our innovations and automation innovations that we are having. Yeah, I actually had already the pleasure to be on vacation last week. So one of my true passions is mountain biking, downhill mountain biking. So you won't recognize me when I'm basically in my full gear, but that's definitely something where I spend my days off, and when especially the weather is good, also that one is exciting.
The Thomas, the funny thing is he said one of my two passions, and one would expect the other passion would be his wife, but I'm pretty sure he would have answered Intelligent RPA.
I assumed it was just SAP in general, but
right.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us this morning. And I think at this point, I'll turn it over to you, Max. We'll do a little bit of presentation from each of you. Max, you're going to talk about no code, and Sebastian, you're going to talk about low code. That's sort of the buzzwords of the day. So we'll let you do your short presentations and demo, and then a little bit later we'll open it up to the audience to be able to ask questions, and you'll field all kinds of questions on this topic for them. So, Max, Absolutely. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Thomas. First off, let me start by saying this is a very long title for a session: business applications and process automation built and deployed safely by anyone in the intelligent enterprise. The shorthand for this is making it cheaper, easier, and faster to customize SAP, to configure a system. I truly believe that if we are going to embrace digitization in the right way, everything's got to get easier. And you've seen in 2020 this massive change that no one in the world expected. And in the course of 2 to 3 months, every major organization around the globe had to rethink their process from the ground up. And that as a catalyzing factor is why we think this is such an important thing to talk about today. And I will jump in with a couple of perspectives. It should be very, very casual. I'll pass it over to Sebastian, and then very much looking forward to Q&A. So we'll get into that pretty quickly. The grounding theme from my perspective as Chief Innovation Officer, and I'm responsible for research, for product incubation, and charting our innovation strategy as a company. The grounding theme for us is that the world of enterprise software in the future will be personal, flexible, and open. And all of this is very simple to understand. I'm not saying anything that surprises anyone, but it's actually a hard future to arrive at. In the world of enterprise software, personalization means I need to understand your context. I need to be able to securely and in a privacy preserving fashion collect data around your intent, understand it, and adhere to issues around data sovereignty, et cetera. And so we have to think about AI in very different ways. Similarly, openness in the world of consumer applications is a fairly straightforward thing. I want to embed a new app on my phone. I download it, launch it. I have all the appropriate permissions, et cetera. We know that the world will become more open. The average CIO has more than 250 SaaS applications today. Well, how do you make it easy and simple to deploy a new app in your environment in a way that works with the landscape you have? And what I think no code, low code ties into most specifically, and what we'll be diving a lot deeper into, is this issue of flexibility. McKinsey said in the 8 weeks at the beginning of this pandemic, the world vaulted forward 5 years in terms of the embrace of digital technologies. I mean, look at Zoom. We're on a Zoom webinar right now. Coming into this year, Zoom had 3 million active daily users. 2 months into the crisis, they had 300 million active daily users. That is phenomenal growth. And the reality is there are a lot of things that don't translate well into Zoom, but many more things that we figured out ways to bring forward. Businesses have to be able to reinvent their processes quickly. They require flexibility. And that flexibility means things need to be easier, because we can't keep IT locked up in an ivory tower if we say we want to embrace change and we want to do that in a fast fashion. It's too difficult to skill up everyone to become a developer. We actually have to make it simple and easy to use the tools from the beginning. And I always think about this in one articulation. You know, I got asked, we were on an analyst call yesterday, and I got asked whether or not this would displace the need for developers or services partners over time. And I said, in some situations, sure. If you have a great, easy, no-code extension framework for SAP, you don't need to develop new software. But the reality is, I said, this need for digitization is expanding. So the pie is growing much faster than you can replace tasks with no-code capabilities. There's too much to do that's high value. And the best example I have is this Netflix and YouTube example. Netflix has 2,800 hours of original content. It is by far more valuable as an entity than YouTube is. 27 Emmys, 183 million viewers. We talk about things like, you know, Tiger King or whatever. It's a cultural hot stone. YouTube has 30,000 hours of content. So more than 10 times the content uploaded every hour. There's a long tail. It's cat videos. It's Sebastian sending messages as jokes to his team. It's all sorts of things that you wouldn't ever think would be produced by highly skilled premium members of the media industry. But it has a role in democratizing this digitization and the streaming of media content. And because of that, albeit YouTube is not as valuable as Netflix, likely on a financial basis, there are 2 billion people around the globe who engage with its content. And for SAP, our challenge is, as the world shifts into this digital model, as we need to embrace e-commerce, as we need to leverage flexibility in our SAP systems in order to ensure supply chain resilience, as we need to automate tasks because the number of requests being processed via Zoom videos or tickets submitted in a ticketing system is simply too high. You need to shift more and more of this work to this long tail. So here's the way I see it, and it's a fairly simple thing. SAP's journey requires us to automate as much as we can in highly standard systems. We have core processes that we talk about every day. Those core processes, to the extent that every one of our customers experiences the same problems in a design to operate scenario, we have to build as much as we can, as much intelligence, as much standardization into the application itself. That's how you get the most value out of an SAP system. And that's the job of every one of our application developers in the company. Every one of our product managers is to understand what happens regularly, how can we apply technology to solve a problem in a meaningful way. Then we have the historic world of cloud platform extension scenarios, where we empower developers across the landscape who are highly skilled to use our technologies to extend what we have. And then there's this other category where we say, look, you might be a process manager or a member of the controlling organization, and you say, I want to close my books faster at the end of the quarter. I want to build the first illustration of what automation could be around managing Excel into my SAP system. Well, for that use case, we need to be able to deliver software capabilities or software development capabilities to people who've never had that experience before. How do we do lifecycle management? How do we create API endpoints? How do we manage integration? How do we deal with permissions? That's all complexity that SAP needs to manage. But our job, along with IT organizations around the globe, is to put in place tooling that empowers those users to make change. That's going to be what we talk about. And, from my perspective, the real opportunity for us is to jump right in. And maybe I'll pass it over to Sebastian, because there's no better way to see this in action, than to experience this reality, than to see the products in action that are making this true.
Thank you, Max, for basically warming up the crowd for Intelligent RPA and the low-code, no-code future of Intelligent RPA. So quick question, can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me try again. Share. Screen one and share. Now you should see it.
Yes, coming through now.
Perfect. Good. Very warm welcome also from my side. I'm very happy that I can now to show you a little bit the latest and greatest of Intelligent RPA, and also where do we see the future of RPA, and especially together with hyper automation. Where are we today? What does Intelligent RPA bring to the world of business processes and towards the world of running day-to-day operations at our customers? On the one hand side, of course, automating with RPA will improve operations, it will increase service quality, it will also increase compliance. One thing that also over the last months, and whenever we also talk to customers, which also came up more and more, and we all now live in a distributed world, is reduce human errors. We are under more and more stress right now with confinement situations, with work from home, with working in a distributed team. That means we do more and more errors, and that also affects the quality of the work that we are doing. And then even more in times of crisis, it becomes more and more important that all this highly repetitive stuff where we don't want to do and click the same 10 buttons day by day, and this is all what we do, that we let RPA and other automation solutions take over those highly repetitive tasks. And also by that, we then solve also the problem of reducing human errors. Where does it go? We have the current world of BPM and RPA, and already today those worlds are let's say brothers and sisters. Whereas BPM is a tactical, structured, top-down approach, RPA basically, I call it RPA is a bottom-up approach, because you leave everything as it is and you just automate the process as it is. You don't try to remodel everything in a structured way. You just accept that the world is disintegrated and you have legacy solutions as well as the most modern cloud solutions and you just want to run an automation on top of both of them together. So current solutions give us the possibility to have IT-driven initiatives. They are developer-oriented. And of course, also they might sometimes feel a little bit of heavyweight, and we also not have yet fully integrated intelligent capabilities into them. Where do you want to go? So where does the next level of process excellence lie, and what are the main elements? Low code, no code is a major game breaker in that environment. Why do we always have to ask IT to automate our processes? Why cannot the distributed teams, now even more distributed in home office, can build their own automations, and also not fully trained developers can build simple, easy to use automations to run their daily jobs, whereas they then have more time to focus on the higher value task or just very simple but even more important things, for example, take care of their family and kids, which also becomes nowadays more and more important. Input integration and integrating RPA, BPM, and intelligent technologies like chatbots becomes more and more important, and also pre-built content that not everyone has to start from scratch. There is a community out there who can help to build those automations. AI infusion is important. Also, when it comes to how to build the automations in the future, there's also something that I'll a little bit elaborate a little further in the next slide, is how we can use information like user behavior mining to guide bot building processes. And at the end, it's all about efficiency of implementation and deployment, and that will the weeks or months that today's project takes really reduce them to hours or days. And this is then a real game changer. Yesterday it was not automated. By the end of today, it will be automated. And this is a real game changer to really broadly roll out a hyper automation strategy. So what are we doing, and what are our key pillars of intelligent RPA now and in the future? We live low code. Our cloud design studio is now in beta. Will be released towards TechEd, so I'm already super excited for TechEd. I hope I see some of you in the TechEd events, where we release our new cloud design studio, which will be fully citizen developer enabled. Recorder is a key element. You want to record complete flows of screens and complete flows of how you act with SAP applications, and then just basically replay them as part of an RPA bot. Process insights and process mining, Spotlight, Intelligent RPA, join forces to really bring this data-driven approach forward. And then pre-built content, we have already more than 100 pre-built bots available today. It's the easiest way to start Intelligent RPA. If you are already a trial member, you can also access those bots. AI capabilities, document processing, service automation, and also AI-based exception handling become more and more important. And then also enterprise readiness. Hyperautomation is not only BPM and RPA and maybe conversation AI. Hyperautomation goes broader, from analytics, from also system landscape monitoring, and also for running and operating all my landscape in the cloud. So this is more how we go towards it. So we're really going broad to bring an SAP-centric approach to hyperautomation. So how does it look like? I'm going to show you, the big scenario is the following. I want to do batch upload of sales orders into a system. So some of you may know transaction VA01. For that, I have an Excel file basically, which has the system information. So where, in which system I want to upload. So the typical sublog-on information, which system I want to upload, or in which system I want to create the sales orders, and then sales order headers and line items. To do that, I need to basically read in the Excel file into my RPA bot to later on then enter those into an SAP system. I want to show you a little bit how that looks like and how I can create this automation. And it just takes 2 minutes to create the complete automation, how to read in the sales, the Excel file. So I'm creating a new automation. That's all I do. And now the main thing in Intelligent RPA and in our new low-code design studio is the activities. Opening Excel, release the Excel instance, and then what we call the so-called Excel Cloud Link. So I'm going to have 3 steps because I need 3 basically variables or data points: system information, order headers, and line items. And now the magic is we have this Excel file, we drag and drop it into the new Cloud Studio, we select the sheet in the Excel file and we select the area, and automatically out of the area and the range in the Excel file, we create the structured data type in Intelligent RPA. There is no need to really create every single data point. We can automatically create structured data points and structured variables in the Intelligent RPA bot environment. Here we select again now the order headers, we give it a name, and we will see how Intelligent RPA automatically imports the structure data type. We create out of these automations the output. So every automation has an input, can have an input, and has an output. These are basically the variables we give out, and we say, okay, this is a list or this is a flat structure variable. And that's it. By that, I have created, I need to return the 3 values, and by that I have created an RPA bot that opens the Excel file, reads system details, reads the order headers as a list, reads the items as a list, and returns them into my bigger RPA bot, then later on takes this information and enters it into an SAP system. That's all I need. So we really saw into 2 minutes creating the elementary part of an RPA bot that completely reads out an Excel file. So moving forward, how do we get started? So this is also something I really want to move you towards our SAP community. Everything that you find and then want to know about Intelligent RPA, you will find at our topic page in the SAP community. You can subscribe to our trial for free. You can try out all the new features. The moment we'll release Intelligent RPA, our new low-code design studio, to the public, it will be also available automatically on the trial. So from my side, stay tuned, and please, whenever you have feedback, follow us on our social media channels. We are super happy to engage with you. Thank you.
So Sebastian, I see there's a question that popped up that you probably answered already in the demo, but there was a question that mentioned, what does SAP envision as the minimum skill set for developers to use RPA? I would love to have you expand on that, and then I certainly have an opinion, but I think you saw the vision of how simple and easy it should be.
So our idea is that also non-developers can build their own RPA bots. Of course, at some point in time, when you want to build the most complex of automations, JavaScript, this is in low code, there's still a little code snippet in there, which we give as possibility, but it's no longer mandatory in the future. So that means every citizen developer, so people who cannot code, will be able to build bots with our version 2. And of course, if you can script a little bit of JavaScript, you don't have to have a complete Masters of Science in computer engineering, in software engineering to do that. If you can script a little bit of JavaScript, like you could also build an Excel macro or VB script, then you can already expand towards the full power of Intelligent RPA.
Yep, I think that first piece of the answer is exactly right in my mind, that we need to figure out how we emancipate some amount of automation and configuration from IT, so we can open the creative pursuit of an IT organization to tackle the more complex problems that are higher value added. And so if we don't get to the point with whether it be RPA automations, or we have SAP Ruum, which is enabling very, very seamless process extensions adjacent to your S4 systems, your SuccessFactors systems, et cetera, where it's just a drag and drop WYSIWYG editor for here is how a process flows. If we don't enable every business user to be able to at least do some of that work themselves, then we've fallen short of our mission.
Correct. That's exactly the power of low code, no code, where we really open up the current tools to basically everyone in the enterprise.
All right, that was an excellent way to kick off the Q&A. And I want to encourage everybody else. We've got a couple of questions that have been asked. We have a couple coming in via other channels, but I want to encourage everyone that if you've got a question, if you hear something from one of the other questions, you want to do a follow-up, go ahead and post your question in the Q&A panel, the little button that you see down in the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. But maybe while we're on this subject, deeply talking about intelligent RPA, there's a follow-up question here in my mind from Maria asking, could this be used with on-premise S/4HANA?
Of course. RPA works on the oldest. We have one of our customer who is using intelligent RPA to automate a finance system still on an AS400. This is the first generation of ERP software ever built. This is the stuff that Hasso Plattner still did program on his own. So we have the oldest, we have customers who are using RPA on the oldest terminal server applications to the newest cloud solutions. And it doesn't matter if it's on-premise, in the cloud, if it's 40 years old, or it's just a software that was released yesterday.
Okay, very good. Maybe backing up here for a moment, there's a very interesting, rather general innovation question that came in, having to do with startups. And Douglas posted about that SAP is doing great work with startups via SAP IO. But for other startups that aren't part of that program, it can be very challenging to build their minimal viable products without investing a lot of money to be able to get access to things like the SAP Cloud Platform or SAP UI5. And Douglas would like to know, what does SAP have in the works to maybe encourage startups more broadly to use our technology?
The short answer of this is a lot, and it's very different across the organization. I would say one of the things that we're doing all over, and RPA is a great example of this, so is SAP Ruum, where you can actually get trial access to developer systems fairly easily. I mean, there's a free trial for IRPA for most of the process management capabilities in Ruum ahead of building integrations specifically into back office systems. You can use that in the existing free environment. And so part of it is just about making it easy to get live with the trial system so you can test out how your MVP would get going, and then push it into production very quickly once you've made the decision to productize. The other thing that we have to do, and again, continue to do all over, is make developer credits available in production environments. Because one thing that we do every time we say, hey, we want you to spin up an instance, we want you to pay for a commercial, build a commercial relationship with SAP and do all of that ahead of testing your product market fit. We put risk as SAP on our community, on our ecosystem. And that simply doesn't work in an ongoing fashion. I mean, if you're sure that you have a customer who wants to deploy something, that's wonderful. But if you're a startup and you're just building out that new idea, that new approach, you need a different take.
Excellent. Next question. Let's take this one. Poster asked, today UiPath or Automation Anywhere is the market leader. How is SAP with RPA planning for the future and hopefully moving up in the Gartner MQ, or basically what's your vision for us being more dominant in this area?
So let me start, Sebastian, and then you talk about the journey forward. Because I love the Gartner MQ and the specific take on SAP. So this was our first year being evaluated since we released our IRPA solution just in 2019. And some of the takes, I found it very fascinating. So we were reviewed as SAP being very SAP specific in terms of how we release automation. And that for me is actually a really positive thing. If we can't make it stable, easy, simple, with pre-built content out of the box for an SAP environment first, then we're doing something wrong, because that's where SAP should really differentiate. And obviously we want to be open and take on more and more after we get started. But I did think that this year's MQ was quite interesting, given that the things that we were both, the strengths that they acknowledged were also the weaknesses they acknowledged. And it had a lot to do with SAP embracing being SAP, which I think for most of the folks in our community, that's actually quite a positive thing. But Sebastian, I think maybe you can better handle how we move up and go from here.
Yeah, I mean, when we started Intelligent RPA, exactly the target for us, we want to make SAP customers happy. So we want to build an automation tool to automate SAP applications and surroundings. That is the whole reason for driving that product forward. There's two things also that Gartner also says, besides the magic quadrant. Gartner also says in a few years from now, RPA standalone will vanish. And Gartner also says there's two major trends in the RPA world. One is hyper-automation and one is low-code, no-code. Interestingly, those topics are on our roadmap even before Gartner has released those market reports. For us, we truly believe in SAP. Now coming back again, we will not build that broad in the market. We will build that for our SAP customers. We will build an SAP-focused hyper-automation strategy where we combine the different solutions SAP has as one powerful big business technology platform that supports automation, monitoring, process insights, structured process management with BPM and with a workflow, collaboration with Ruum, and so on and so on. So this hyper-automation strategy is for us a core element. And this will allow us to give our customers a complete business technology platform. And low-code, no-code is true. I mean, we have and we will go towards the direction that everyone can build a bot to automate their SAP problems. And this is exactly our target strategy. And then, of course, we want to make it easier for existing SAP customers to already subscribe to Intelligent RPA. So we will also see around TechEd more news about how SAP Intelligent RPA can be automatically used within the SAP ecosystem. And this is exactly our strategy, how to make every of our SAP customers happy with Intelligent RPA. And I'm pretty sure this will also have an effect on the Gartner MQ.
Very good. Next question. I thought this one's interesting to me personally. There seems to be some confusion. We use the term bot, right? And, but we use it in different contexts. There's SAP conversational AI, there's RPA. Maybe you could take a minute to talk about what are the differences between these two things when you'd use RPA versus conversational AI, and how do you make that decision of when to choose what there?
So at the end, you don't have to choose between one or the other, and they're actually complementary. I mean, bot is just a short form for robot, to be very, very honest. So it's some sort of be it a digital assistant or a digital worker, and we apply that thought or that picture of a robot into the software world. Of course, it's not a physical robot at the end. It's just a piece of software that acts as an assistant or a worker. Conversational AI allows us to communicate with a computer system in natural language, be it via chat or be it even via a real voice or voice-to-text engine. That means I can give basic commands to my computer. The question is, how are those commands executed? And this is then where Intelligent RPA comes into place. This is also the integration between SAP Conversational AI and Intelligent RPA. I can create a chatbot, whereas behind every user intent, so I'm giving I'm stating in my chatbot, let's say it's a chatbot, I'm stating I want to have the following information. And then I can put an intelligent RPA bot into the background that basically fetches the information, gives it back to conversation AI, and conversation AI gives the answer as a natural language answer. This is exactly the coexistence between those two solutions. So you don't have to choose between the two. You actually can combine them.
So I'm like a very simple metaphor guy. And I think it's easy in this sense to say, okay, you used to have somebody in a shared service center who received a question. And often the question required remediation. So there was somebody sitting behind a screen who read an email, conversed back and forth to get more context around the email, and then jumped off from that ticketing system and went into an SAP environment. Conversational AI allows you to automate that context getting, the initial email, the back and forth, the how do I get enough context to take a decision. And RPA allows you to automate jumping into the system and executing the change. So one is the agent and the other is the change execution.
Very good. What I see here is I've got a couple of very pointed, almost very technical questions about the scope of RPA. Sebastian, you want to maybe hit these quick fire here? First one, how can I use standard RPA apps with a trial account and an on-premise S/4HANA system? Is that possible to combine the two that way?
Yep, very easy to combine. You can just create an SAP GUI automation or an SAP GUI automation with the Intelligent RPA tool, and our desktop agent anyway runs on premise, and this one will then control the S/4HANA cloud, the S/4HANA on-premise instance.
Okay, very good. Does Intelligent RPA have OCR as a function?
We do partner in OCR with Abby and OpenText. So we have a strong partnership with OpenText and Abby. So it's then the choice of our customer which of those two OCR engines to use.
Okay. Like I said, we're quick hitting a few of these very detailed questions, but it's good. This one's a little bit more forward-looking since it seems they want to know about what will happen with the new cloud development studio. So maybe you can't detail that yet, but we'll put it out there. It's fine to say, yeah, we have to wait and see. But they want to know what happens with the bots that have already been built in the desktop studio when the new cloud development studio is released later.
Yeah, the desktop studio will continue to exist. So every bot that is built can continue to run and will continue to be supported. The desktop studio also will remain as expert tool. So that's also something that is, we will still support the expert developer and not the citizen developer. And for us, those two design times are basically fitted to this, to those two personas.
Okay. Next question. Is machine learning deeply embedded into Intelligent RPA beyond just plugins? So connecting computer vision or translation, things like that. Where does that play into this tooling?
So the main usage of machine learning in the Intelligent RPA space is via business services. They can be plugged. I would use your term, Thomas, of plugin. They can be used as part of the bots at the end. This is also the main use case of machine learning together with RPA. So machine learning services are executing a dedicated task in an RPA bot, be it to digitize unstructured information or also modeling a more complex decision engine with a machine learning model.
Okay. I also want to chime in and say on that question, hi, Abbas. Hope things are well in Berlin.
Okay, maybe switching gears here as we go back and forth, and we still have some more of these rather technical focus questions, but maybe throw a little bit more of a strategy one in here over from the chat, where we got the question about, oh, now I lost my place for just a second here, sorry. The question about the overall strategy, how this plugs in for the partner ecosystem. You know, we've talked a little bit about the role of partners here, but you know, low code, no code, and how does that affect, I'm reading a little into his question, but how does that affect the relationship and the role of the partner ecosystem?
It's a great question. And look, I started by saying we need to be wildly open as SAP. And there are different reasons you would use different solutions across, whether it be low code, no code, RPA, from an app building or automation perspective. But everything that SAP does and needs to do is in service of our customers and choice that they may have. So there are lots of vendors who, for instance, have great capabilities around cross-system integration in a no-code environment. I mean, we even partner with folks like Zapier, and we have pre-built integrations with Workato and these types of vendors who allow things to become easier over time. But for SAP, what we do ask ourselves every day is how can we make things cheaper, easier, more accessible, and simpler for an SAP customer to get value out of this kind of journey into the land of process automation against our 4 key processes. And a lot of this has to do with how do we make things stable, which isn't always the focus of many of the players in the ecosystem. So while we concentrate on choice and innovation around the topics where we think SAP has unique capability to deliver, and we partner elsewhere, as Sebastian mentioned, for OCR, the partnerships with Abby and OpenText are a great illustration of how we want to make sure that there's choice, but anything that can be tackled as SAP uniquely is something that we do.
All right. Next question. So I'm going to paraphrase a little here. It's a very long question, but basically, I take it the poster sees the value in using low code, no code to improve the day-to-day operations, bring a great experience to the business. But how can we also ensure aspects of internal quality process guidelines, the kind of controls that we enforce on developers today via things like code reviews and standards and things like that? How can that also be applied to these approaches and these kinds of tooling?
The governance question.
Yes.
I like that question, Uli. Especially you are one of our honored and valued customers here. So do you want to take it, Max, or should I?
Yeah, why don't I start and you can correct me where I'm wrong. The governance question is a really important one because it also exposes a change in the relationship of IT to the business. When we spend most of our time today sitting down with our traditional SAP customers in IT organizations, a lot of what we do around low code, no code is spend time talking about controls, cascade, education. So how do you turn on a capability in a way where a business user can test something out, send it to IT for approval, and the only thing we have to check is, are the permissions set appropriately? Are they using the right integrations, et cetera, et cetera? And so you see more of this enablement between IT and the business or the businesses themselves. You see IT focused more on, serving and supporting that transformation as opposed to delivering it themselves. And therefore, there's no way to get away from this responsibility of governance. It's just a new framework. Instead of imposing it in process controls and how you develop, you impose it on the tool itself. So you abstract away the choices that make it possible to introduce security flaws into your system. You control that as IT, and then because you've given people flexibility, but in a way where they can't damage or break the environment, then you've given them a narrow box, but you've said within this box, do whatever you want, come up with all the solutions you can.
I mean, from my side, and there's also a super question, Uli, because also the model like you operate your HR, shared service centers and your unit is also the model like we see in most of our RPA customers right now. The business units are the ones who know the business processes best and they want to build the bots on their own, but the business units don't have usually a developer workforce at the end. But now comes IT into play, and it's a matter of choice again, like also Max said. It's about how each and every company and organization wants to live that process, and we want to give that choice. We want to not build a tool that only allows one single choice. At the end, it's the choice of each and every organization. But a pattern that I definitely see here is that business units build their bot, but IT, who usually is best in 24/7 high availability operation, maintains the RPA landscape. So the business units build the bots, and then they hand it over for a final check and for hosting to a central IT or RPA center of excellence at the end, who then takes on the bots, just operates them, sets them live, and makes sure the bots do operate 24/7.
Very good. So I'm going to ask this next one, but I will put a disclaimer out here up front that I'm personally someone who spent the last 25 years of my life writing ABAP code. So I see a little bit of myself reflect in this question, but most of the automation of SAP processes can already be done with ABAP programs, ABAP developers. Then why would we go for Intelligent RPA? Beyond the obvious answer is then you don't need ABAP developers, right? But I think we've already touched on some things, but it's worth reiterating the deeper opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is this McKinsey question of, in 8 weeks, we vaulted forward 5 years in digitization. I give you, in the month of February, the amount of e-commerce in the United States grew by almost 100%. And so you see this massive shift into digital automation, and there's a fixed number of ABAP developers. And we were already facing large backlogs of what could be delivered within the ecosystem based on code, not because we don't have highly qualified, immensely capable ABAP developers, but because the sheer opportunity is much larger. And so the focus for us is, how do we allow our development community to focus on those high value use cases more, and do less of the mundane automation, and allow business users themselves to do more of that long tail, the lower value use cases, et cetera. So we can focus on the high value things out of our development base.
Maybe also a very simple part to that question is, not everything is ABAP anymore. And also, even the example that I showed from creating sales orders from an Excel. The question is, how does the information from the Excel go into the ABAP system? The moment it is inside the SAP application server, so the pure variables and data, then of course I can do everything with ABAP. And if I am able to write ABAP code, of course I should do it. But how does the Excel file come from an email inbox into an ABAP system, or from a file share into the SAP system? This is exactly how RPA is. See it again back to this picture of a robot. The robot has arms. It takes information from A to B, lifts it up here, and puts it down in another place. And the typical RPA bot spans across 3 to 5 different applications or systems. And this is exactly the power. RPA is in fact an integration technology.
And maybe if I can interject a little here, get out of my moderator spot for just a second. As a longtime developer, I also look at tools like this, and it doesn't mean that developers can't use them too, right? I mean, if just because it is targeted for the citizen developer or the business expert, if it helps us automate something that we would have to write code to do, and speeds up some part of the process to allow us to focus more time on writing maybe more interesting code, more important code, that's also a good thing. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and it's in fact one of the sticking points Jan Schaffner regularly addresses with me, where he says, look, I think the fact that we talk about this low code, no code space as a separate space is the wrong mental model. And then he starts talking about, and I agree with this in a big way, what he calls nonlinear development. Hey, I want to hack together the first prototype of something. Why would I spend time writing clean code? I want to test the user experience. I want to see what the relevant value would be. And so there, if I have a drag and drop capability to get, an app on a device quite quickly, sure, I'll use that, get feedback. It's like wireframing. And then what I want to do is push the logic down one layer and start really working in a more seamless fashion in an IDE. And I want to jump back and forth, make quick changes. And so I think that approach of nonlinear development as well is a meaningful one. And it also makes again the case for us of why we think SAP is uniquely positioned to do this, because we have to deliver something that works up and down the business technology platform, or we have low code, no code capabilities. But if you do decide that you want to go deeper and deliver more kind of highly specific capabilities into an application, you can descend a level.
Yeah, very nice. And I think that alleviates some of the concern of developers that this is something that's going to totally replace our jobs as well, right? Now and we're running a little short on time, and there are some more very detailed questions here. And rather than, and I'm afraid we won't have time to go through them all, but maybe Sebastian, for these people that have some of these detailed questions about OData access and conversational AI, or this tenant question about the desktop agent, where's the best place that they could maybe take these very detailed technical questions at the SAP Community Q&A, or where's the best place that perhaps some people from your team could help answer these?
So the best place is exactly the Q&A area in our SAP topic community page. There's a topic page, SAP Intelligent RPA or Intelligent Robotic Process Automation, and there's a dedicated Q&A section. And you will see several questions posted even per day, and even you might even use the search functionality to find already the right answer, because all our team is active in the community. Also, you have direct access to our Intelligent RPA support experts, and they are super happy to answer all the deep dive technical questions. How do I do this? How I have a problem with that? Can you help me in our SAP communities? This is exactly for what our community is for.
And it's also, I mean, as I said, we're not going to have time to get to all the questions here today. It's also a great place to go to continue to communicate with you and your team through that channel. It doesn't always have to be just technical questions, how to. It can be some of these more general questions and discussed in the community as well. So maybe we have time for just one last question. And I'll pick one out here. I thought this one was interesting, asking about, are there plans to bring, and I wonder if it means bring back, if there has been in the past, SAP RPA hackathons. Maybe talk about what plans we have for education in general, but it sounds like there was a good solution out here to particularly help young champions get started with RPA. Anything you can share on that?
So we will definitely do more and more events in our community, and hackathons. I like the idea of hackathons. So what I would like to do is, the moment our version 2 becomes reality, which is just a few months away, that we start another wave of hackathons where really people can stress test our new design time.
All right. And unfortunately, our time is nearly up. So in order to wrap things up, are there any final thoughts, questions, calls to action that you guys would like to leave with the community?
Sebastian, why don't you start us off?
So from me, my call to action is very simple. Join our community, subscribe to the trial, get your hands dirty with Intelligent RPA, give us feedback via the community. This is the complete engagement that we have. And I'm super excited that we really start this conversation together via our community page. My
ask is just test it out, use it, trial, whether it's RPA or Ruum, we see very powerful use cases. And in a time where there is increasing need for automation, we need to help people get back on their feet. When I hear stories like the Canton of Zurich automating with our RPA solution, the processing of small business loan applications, these grassroots efforts can have powerful impact. So try it out, come up with your ideas. If you need help, reach out to us. We're here. That's what we're here for.
Well, on behalf of the community, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been an excellent conversation, and particularly, taking all kinds of questions here, it creates an excellent two-way communication with the community, and everyone really appreciates that kind of interaction and taking the time out of your day to share with the community. But with that, we'll wrap things up, and also thank you for those of you that joined us here today and brought great questions. Without those questions, this would just be another presentation, and it's really your questions that make these community calls a very special and unique kind of thing. So thanks to everyone for participating.
Good stuff. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Thomas, and the whole community team for that excellent session on that super hot Friday afternoon.